Her Excellency, Mrs. Pauline Talent. Mrs. Talent, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. You're welcome, Kingsley.
All right. Also, joining us for this conversation via Zoom, would like to welcome the wife of the Kebbi State Governor, Her Excellency Dr. Zainab Shinkafi Bagudu. Your Excellency, delight to have you with us this morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you.
And as part of the conversation too is Esther Uzoma, the National Coordinator, PRO, that is, of Active Gender Initiative. You're welcome, Uzoma.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, let's get started and then see how far we can go in trying to make justice or have justice for this topic. Your Excellency, you've been all around the places in the past 16 days,
That's
actively going to schools,
Yes.
institutions, markets, and every other place, sending the message, yelling at those who perpetrate violence, appealing to politicians to enact laws and the rest of them. How heavy, would I say, how heavy is the takeaway from these 16 days?
It's quite heavy, but we thank God for all those who have joined in it, because the support from the high-class political leaders, wives of governors, civil society organizations, well-meaning Nigerians, the UN, the EU, the international community, this support has been overwhelming. I just want to say thank you to everyone for the support, for the encouragement. You can, last week, all wives of governors, after this governors forum declared the 16 days of activism, the wife of the president first raised the alarm. Dr. Aisha Muhammadu Buhari condemned it in its totality and urged wife of governors to key in, because most of these perpetrators are mostly at the state and local government levels. We cannot do it alone here. We must take it down to the grassroots. And the wives of governors answered the call, chaired by the wife of the chairman of the Governors Forum, BC Faimi. She galvanized wives of governors that are concerned about gender-based violence, about 25 of them. And they've been on. They were here in Abuja last week with their husbands. We had a joint 2 days conference that really shook this country. And I believe with this awareness being intensified day by day, we are getting people to come out and speak. Because the response, the courage to come out and speak is what we want.
All right, thank you very much, Mrs. Talent. Let's bring in Dr. Zainab Bagudu, wife of the Kebbi State Governor. But, Your Excellency, you listened to the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs applaud the steps that were taken over the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. How much of a problem are we actually faced with here, and therefore what impact, in your opinion, you think that the 16 days of activism might have made on the challenge that we actually are dealing with?
Well, thank you very much. Your Excellency, thank you for the acknowledgement of the work that the Nigerian Governors' Wives Against GBV have been doing. Sexual and gender-based violence is a huge problem, not just in Nigeria, but across the world. It has become an even bigger problem with the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the numbers of cases that were reported has increased remarkably. One of the reasons why we feel that this has increased, aside from the obvious fact that there is a hidden pandemic during the lockdown and all the frustrations that COVID brought, is because there is a heightened level of awareness, and conversation has been heightened to a very large degree. You yourself acknowledge the work that the Honorable Minister, her ministry, the Ministry of Justice at the federal, state, and local government levels have been doing. Also civil societies, of which in this case our platform can be counted as a civil society, but one that has a high level advocacy. That is to say, we're able to speak to the governors of the states, being the spouses and the mothers of all the states, to get action. It's not just about talk now, it's about action. So in the last 16 days, like every other 16 days of activism that has been going on across the world, there has been a heightened level and increased conversation about issues that are around around gender-based violence. And in our case, we have had, like you also pointed out, a conference, which is the first of its kind in Nigeria. There's so many things that I can go into that is the first of its kind in Nigeria. We just recently launched a grassroots radio show that was sponsored by Access Bank. And this is to try to get to the grassroots, to get to the people at the rural level. Majority of Nigerians are living in the rural areas. And so we're speaking to them. Our platform enables us to be able to do that. So in a nutshell, we have achieved a lot. There's been a lot more heard about gender-based violence in these 16 days than in the previous years.
Oh, many thanks, Zainab. Esther Uzuma, let's hear from you. The whole thing, although Dr. Zainab said you are reaching to the grassroots, but the impact is not so much felt as it is felt at the urban areas. The fear of the public may be that this may sound somewhat elitist in the sense that most of the activities in the past 16 days have been from the urban areas and have not been trickling down so much as it were at the rural areas. What would you say about your reach to the rural areas? Because most of these violence, most of them, are being perpetuated at rural areas where education is little about this.
Actually, I disagree with you with so much vehemence. I could jump up from this.
Don't jump, please.
All right,
Let's talk about it.
And I will add to that.
It's activism. Don't jump, all right?
I will add to that.
You where you are.
With so much vehemence, I had to jump from here.
Deal with that.
You see,
Yeah.
look at the fine combination. We have a minister, who was a gender activist before she became a minister.
Yeah.
And we have a forum of governors' wives led by Her Excellency, BC. The combination is electric. What we are having now, where we are now, we've never been there before. The awareness, particularly in the rural areas, take it from me, is so much. Look at what happened in Eche. Eche is a village in Oyibo. What happened? A man who runs a church was abusing his 2 children in the village. For the first time, they found the courage to listen, he was abusing his daughter and 2 of his grandchildren. And stories like this are replete in all the rural areas. Because like the radio message, Her Excellency talks about, these messages communicate to people in their indigenous language. It's no longer an elephant in the living room. You see women shouting, look at what this man is doing here. Actually, the joke is on the elites who want to keep up face. The rural woman is screaming to the heavens.
Yes.
Calling everybody who should be called. I get telephone calls from everywhere that I can't even reach. It is the people, in the urban centers who want to please still keep up the facade. They're the ones who are deliberately concealing this elephant in the living room. But the rural women, they are shouting. They are going to indigenous places to seek cleansing. Because we're saying now, you can come to the law. And so I disagree with you. The awareness at that level, grassroots level, is so much. We see Ezes calling us, traditional rulers, say, please, come and intervene, come and help. And we are channeling it appropriately. So much has helped in this direction. For instance, the launch of the register of sexual offenders, that one alone, the fear of being, because once your name is there, they say the internet doesn't forget. It doesn't go away. So people, it's a deterrent. All right? And so the awareness is there.
And pictures.
Yes, and pictures, because that's how, biometrics. No family wants to have that bad, omen, that, this man was convicted of a sexual offense and all that. So people are being, so it's a culmination of factors, but above all, the right people presently are in the right position.
Now that you haven't really jumped up, and we're really on the same page now, let's talk now, okay? The register is there. I was just trying to head towards that direction.
Okay.
Let's see. How has the register really, how have the rural people in these areas, talking about statistics and the rest of them, responded to this, and how is the register being followed, and how are people being shamed in that regard?
Well, in the rural areas, first they have a protocol. You know, when things like this happen, you know, go to the village head, go to the family head, get to the Eze, you know, to the king, traditional ruler. That is the protocol. But more and more, we see them appealing, getting in touch with CSOs. Because most times we leave our contacts on these indigenous radio messages.
Okay.
Indigenous radio messages. And you see somebody calling you, someone else is interpreting. Someone else is interpreting. And so they now know what the laws are, vaguely. They now know that, yes, you can ventilate outside the traditional structure. And they are using it. They are not keeping quiet about it. They are using it more so because they believe that there are some other evils that follow these things when you do not speak out. So for the register, I think that's a huge success. Nobody wants their name to be there, to smear their family name.
Do you have statistics?
Well, presently, the last that NAPTIP released, I think it's about 78 convicted. Okay. Yes.
In other words, you don't go into the register until you face the law.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So Esther, thanks a lot. We'll come back to you shortly. Honorable Minister, back to you again. Yes, I mean, we know that there are frequent reports of gender-based violence around the country. How do you deal with this as a ministry? I know that you're concerned about policy, you're concerned about linkages with the subnational entities, but how do you deal with it? I recall we've had you on Good Morning Nigeria talking about one specific aspect of gender-based violence, in this case, rape. Both yourself and Esther, you've been here, and you were all well emotionally traumatized by the narration. But in terms of other aspects of gender-based violence, more particularly the physical violence and emotional torture and all that, how do you cope? What kind of deluge do you have to deal with?
It is so huge because it happens every day.
That's right.
And it's not just the ministry that handles it. We have a clear-cut structure. We have commissioners of women affairs in all the 36 states. And we have social welfare officers in all the local governments, 774. So we make sure we work closely with them, and I put my commissioners on their toes to make sure that they closely monitor what is happening, because awareness is the key. Once you intensify awareness, as he said, in radio and whatever, people will have the courage now to come and speak out. And we also do town hall meetings. I've been going around the states, if you've watched all my activities. And again, to add to Esther's anger that she wanted to jump up, you think that we are only in Abuja. Yeah. For the first time, if you remember last year, we flagged off the 16 days activism here in Abuja, opening the register and everything. Yes. But this time, for the first time, we moved out. And we moved out in a big way, not just me. I flagged off by declaring the press conference. I had a big press conference with all the UN agencies, EU, and all the civil society organizations on Tuesday. Yes. I left home ready. From the office, we started by 10. Immediately, the program went on with students, youth organizations, and all that. We finished at about 12:30, and our flight was 2 o'clock. From the office, we all moved with the UN country coordinator, Edward Callon, UN Women, UNFPA, UNAIDS. It was a big delegation of UN and EU and the ministry. We moved to Sokoto.
Okay.
Because Sokoto happens to be one of the spotlight states. It was in Sokoto from the airport straight to pay a courtesy call with the governor. From there, we moved into a town hall meeting. We started the town hall meeting by 5:30, and it was on till 9:30. Religious leaders, community leaders, youth organizations, women, name it. the hall was filled to the brim, and we poured out. And it was at that town hall meeting that the UN agencies saw the activism in our women. Wow. Women in powder they sat in one side, while the men and the youth sat on the other side. So after I addressed them, I speak in the local language. I speak in Hausa. I just speak briefly in English, read my speech, but now I communicated to them in Hausa. And at that town hall meeting, they raised their voices and said there must be punitive measures. And I made an example with what the governor of Kaduna did, and it was an uproar. It was like a referendum. They now endorsed that their own laws should be amended for castration. So you can see people are aware, and we spent 2 days in Sokoto. We visited hospitals, the number of young girls that are suffering in our hospitals, the VVF patients. We went there, and actually more boys, young boys. I commissioned the Nana Kajijet one-stop center on that day, on the 25th. So almost all the activities, we started again the following day from morning till night. And we left Sokoto at about 8:30 in the night from one program after the other. So we are reaching out to the grassroots. We are reaching out to states. It's not just here. And within the 16 days, what happened in Maiduguri, Mr. President directed myself and the Minister of Humanitarian to go and visit them. While we were there, we reached out. From there, I moved to my state because the by-election took place last weekend. I used the opportunity again. I galvanized the youths, the women organizations. I oranged everywhere.
That's right.
The theme of this year is Orange the Wall. Fund, respond, prevent, and collect.
Honorable Minister, we will come to you presently to elicit some of the takeaways from these interactions.
Yes.
And therefore to say, look, what are the voices coming from the communities? But let's return to the wife of the Kebbi State Governor. That's Dr. Zainab Bagudu. Dr. Zainab, well, at the subnational level, I am sure that your ears are filled daily with accounts of the harrowing experiences of victims of gender-based violence. How much of an issue is this to you on a daily basis, and what do you think are the causative factors, say, in your locality?
Thank you. It's becoming more and more following the awareness that we're raising. Malam Usman, you need to come to Kebbi and spend a week with us and see where we go, and you will understand that it's not limited to the urban areas. We go to all the local government areas. We have a technical working group that consists of members of all the stakeholder bodies, like the religious leaders. I have regular meetings with them. Just 2 weeks ago, I met with the Council of Ulama. When I walked into the room, I was shaking a little bit, because when you see these kind of very high-profile religious leaders and traditional rulers all coming together because of one cause, then you realize the gravity of the enormity and the responsibility that is placed on us and how much we must deliver. Subsequent to all this, we have had a very high rate of increased reporting in Kebbi. And we found that most of the reports, for instance, this year, there have been about 600 cases of GBV reported to the various authorities. That is the Department of Public Prosecution, HISBA, the Nigerian Police, Nigerian Civil Defense. These are the main bodies that we got the reports from. And we found out that because of our cultural peculiarities, most of the reports, over 350, were from HISBA. that is the Islamic police in the States. And that shows this a reflection of the sociocultural characteristics of Kebbi. So this was double what was reported last year. And for every case that is reported, research and statistics has shown that there are at least 4 that are hidden. So for this period, we think it's a big win. And with regards to the causative factors, one of the biggest problems that we have had is lack of cooperation from the authorities. And when we have leading figures like the minister, like the president himself and his wife have spoken to this case so many times, there's hardly any radio that you turn on now that is not talking about it. The honorable minister and then the chief advocates of the states, the wives of governors, including the chief executive, the governors themselves, they are funding it better. For the first time in Kebbi, our law was presented to the State House of Assembly for passage into law. This is the first, obviously it's the first time because it hasn't been passed. And this is the first time we have reached that level where the State House of Assemblies actually have considered it. They've had a public hearing. We're about to have a SAC center, which I pray Honorable Minister will come and open for us soon. It's not something nice, but it's a fact and a reality of our situation that we need to have these centers that will help to cure and rehabilitate the victims of the sexual and gender-based violence. And as well, the centers serve as a position or a home where you can collect data from. Without data, then we will not be able to get the funding that is required. I can't make the case to the partners. I can't make the case to the Ministry of Women Affairs or to my husband to say, you have to do this because there are a lot of people that are being affected by it. So not being aware, religious people confuse religion with culture and they say, oh, you can't talk, you mustn't talk. And a lot of the perpetrators don't even know they're doing something wrong. So all these has to be included in our school curriculum. We've had lessons, conversation cafe, they're called, with boys as well as girls, which just teaches them to be confident and to speak out. And most of all, to have a reporting mechanism in the schools. One of the biggest places where it occurs is in our schools. And we need to have set up systems of reporting in these schools. So that's just a little bit.
Well, congratulations, Dr. Zainab. We thank you so much for that insight. But still, we really want to hang on to you a little bit and then see how far we can go in trying to elicit more information about the hidden cases of gender-based violence, especially in that area. You somewhat mentioned that out of all the cases mentioned, 4 are more or less hidden. And 4 is no small number anyway. If you can get those 4 out, at least will go a long way in addressing this issue. How far have you gone in trying to reach out, looking at the cultural and the religious background of your state and so many other parts of the North?
How far have we gone to reach out to them, to the religious bodies, or to, I missed the question.
4 hidden, cases, because that is why the real problem is. If all can come out, then I think we should have gone almost 80% in solving the issue.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all, because this is just the best year we have had in terms of gender-based violence. And like I said to you, this year, the reported cases have doubled, just over 60% from what we had last year. So it means that there's another 50% that is still there in the community. And statistically, I explained that is 1 in 4. So if you extrapolate that, it shows that maybe we have gone 20% of where we need to get to. There's still a huge amount of work to be done. Like you rightly pointed out, the majority, 80% of Nigerians are resident in the rural areas. They don't have access to this TV program. They don't have access to the internet. They don't know what we mean by VAPLAs. They don't know what we mean by 16 days of activism, but they need a reporting system. They need to know that, number one, this is wrong and it shouldn't be done. And then when it happens, who is your gatekeeper? The community gatekeepers have to be equipped to be able to deal with this so that punitive measures can be taken. So we're not very far. I wouldn't go anywhere near 80% at all.
I was just wondering. Thank you very much, Dr. Zainab. I want to return to the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs. Esther will pause you in the meantime. From your interaction, I mean, one-off, and of course you do get reports from your colleagues who are in the States. What are the factors driving gender-based violence in our society today? Let's not blame COVID-19. Yes, COVID-19, of course, has accounted for so many things in the year 2020. And the police authorities themselves in their crime projections had indicated that because of the lockdown, we're going to see a spike in domestic violence. But before COVID-19 and after COVID-19, gender-based violence is likely to continue. So what are the factors driving it in our society today?
Well, there are so many factors. So many factors that are out there. And we need to look at some of these factors critically. Poverty is one. And that's why I'm intensifying the advocacy on the girl-child education. If a child is educated, if a woman is educated and she can be on her own and she has a good job, she can fend for herself, she is less likely to be abused by men. But if a woman is an illiterate and she is completely dependent on a man, he treats her like a trash. So that's why illiteracy is one, poverty is another one. And again, most cases where minors are abused, because the parents, because of poverty, the perpetrators will come and smuggle in, give them some envelopes, and then beg them to keep quiet. And because of the poverty, they collect and now want to push cover the case up. You've had the issue that some months back, the issue that we all broke down here. There are so many, millions of such cases. And that's why we must address the issue of empowering women. Empowerment is key. Education is key. And that's why if you watch our program yesterday with the school children, where we are reaching out to school children, intensifying advocacy for them to know their rights and to speak out. Some teachers abuse the children. Some staff in the house. A rapist is not a stranger. A rapist is somebody that is closest to you.
That's right.
Either your neighbor, an uncle, even fathers. So we have to look at these issues and ensure that the woman is fully empowered. The woman knows her right. Advocacy is key. If we keep advocating, enlightening them, and they know their rights, they can speak out. Even those in Puda, they are beginning to be aware now, and they know that if they speak out, they can get help. We also engage. The police are doing their best too. Like 2 days ago, the most senior police officer, Aisha, the AIG, she was there with over 10 senior police officers where they counseled and spoke to the children and educate them on the need to speak out. And we are working closely with the Inspector General of Police and his team to ensure that they respond, just as the team. Orange the wall, fund, respond, collect, and prevent. Now, we are enjoying a lot of political will. Mr. President is committed. The Senate President, you had his clear commitment that serious punitive measures must be meted on perpetrators. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, all our governors. So, as Dr. Zainab has rightly said, we are getting support from the highest political class. And it is trickling down. Chairmen of local government are involved, their wives, everybody is involved. So it's a wake-up call for everyone.
Esther?
Well, let's consider the power relations. Power relations. Because that power relations always determines what goes, what gives, who can do what. The male, I keep saying, is, always socialized into power for some reason. It is good. But it's that same power relations that give, an undue sense of entitlement. It is that same power relations that will make the little girl not speak out when her father is abusing her? Because of that place of power and awe that should ordinarily be for comfort and protection. When it is used for abuse, children do not speak out. I mean, because it is daddy, it is uncle, it is big brother. So power, that power relation. So continually, we must begin to educate and socialize our sons, to know that their masculine appendages is not about power. Masculinity has been tied to so much, the image of Samson, Hercules. So, you see it playing out in abuse because it's about power. Manhood is about protection of the weak, panache, gentleman, offering a hanky to a lady, offering your shoulder, and not about abuse with your masculine appendage. So, we must investigate and interrogate the power relations. And again, the people who sell aphrodisiacs, it's an unregulated area. Somebody is always selling something to enhance, elongate, enlarge the penis. And you see small children reading these things, and then they're unconsciously, they think, oh, this is what I should do. Nobody is punishing those people, for instance, for the aphrodisiacs they sell, the consequences. Because it is an unregulated area, and it is sold everywhere. And young children, teenagers access these things, and they misbehave. You see, so we must draw attention to the power relations, sale of aphrodisiacs, and then again, our criminal justice system, which is where the bulk, the Nigerian police is trying, but the courts are overwhelmed. The courts are simply overwhelmed. The world has moved to forensics for proof, but in this country, it's still circumstantial. Who was there? Who else saw it? Did you shout? But, we're outside the shores of Nigeria, it's samples. So these are some of the factors.
Yes, thanks. I don't know, Nadabo, we have just about 5-10 minutes or less with the governor's wife, because she has another engagement. I just would like us to take advantage of her medical background. Dr. Zainab, well, in terms of approaches to deal with the issues of gender-based violence, guests now have explored the social and economic perspectives. I was just wondering, how much are we tapping into, or should we tap into psychological and psychiatric studies and even help? Some of these persons, as Nigerians would say, some of them are just madmen. You also see women who are crazy anyway.
This is a huge part of gender-based violence and abuse. The psychological impact and the damage that it does to human beings is enormous. In the past, there are lots of studies that believe that a perpetrator an abused child goes on to become a perpetrator. Again, there are researches against this now. We won't go into that. But at the bane of all this is that there is a huge lack of the support services that is required to help victims that have been abused, right from the social workers to the therapists that we talk about, and the psychiatric medical doctors. Aside from there not being a center, right now we have 31 SAC centers across Nigeria, but not every state has one. Like us in Kebbi, we do not have a sexual assault referral center where a victim of abuse can go to and get immediate treatment in terms of any injuries that have been caused, in terms of post-exposure prophylaxis to infectious diseases like HIV, as well as post-emergency contraception in case a woman has been impregnated. So a SAC center is supposed to provide all these immediate needs, as well as have the backup of a psychiatric service that should help that woman go through the period, or the man go through the period of abuse, not just in the center, but into the community as well. Now, this is something that is greatly lacking in our society, in our health system, and we do not have it, and we need to work harder at it. Even the social welfare officers in the ministries like Ministry of Women Affairs and Health, are not adequate. We don't have enough guidance counselors in our schools. And so I'd like to use this opportunity to call on our young people when they're looking for careers. This is a very big career and it's something that they should look into. We don't all have to be doctors and lawyers. There's so many other interesting careers that you will be able to give back to society and help. In the interim, what we do is to train suitable people from civil society, from religious bodies and so on, even the authorities, the law enforcement agencies, to take up that task, and then they can do some. I myself have become a counselor, but I am not trained to do it properly.
Doctor, before we let you go, we want to really get your views about the power issue Uzoma talked about. We seem to understand that in your environment, and of course, mostly in the North, the power theme plays out very well because of some religious and cultural, beliefs and the rest of them. And given that issue, a lot of young ones, especially women and girls, find themselves vulnerable to this power play by men. How far has this gone to aggravate the situation in that area?
By being a role model to girls, not just when it comes to do with gender-based violence, but with education generally. I'm constantly going around girls' schools in particular. In fact, I get a lot of complaints from the boys that you don't come to our schools, even the teachers. So because I try to put myself in a position of being a leader, a mother, and encourage these girls to have the confidence that I was brought up with, have the ability to speak to their authority figures in a very polite and engaging manner. I do not support youth being restive or youth being insolent like we see a lot of on social media. I am active on social media. I engage them constantly so that we can try to get the best out of them. By doing this, we give that image, a certain image to our girls, particularly, like you said, in northern Nigeria. Whether we like it or not, it is a problem, and it's one of the things that situations we find ourselves in. The other thing that I do, like I mentioned, is engaging the community gatekeepers and stakeholders, in particular the religious and the traditional rulers. They are authority figures, and the way they conduct these issues, the way they speak to people in the environment, is the way they allow themselves to be open, is going to help a lot in giving that community sense of confidence that will enable the women to come out. The other thing, again, finally, I will speak on, is empowerment. An empowered woman is a confident woman. An empowered woman is able to speak up, not just on gender violence, but on so many things. A woman that is contributing to the upkeep of her home is going to have a voice in making decisions, whether she can go to hospital to have her antenatal and delivery, whether her baby can go for immunization, whether her daughters can go to school past a certain age and not just be married off. So by empowering them and having all kinds of programs and schemes and, supported by the state government, supported by partners, both within and outside, supported by philanthropic organizations, again, within and outside the state, we're able to try to just raise the level of a woman just that bit higher so that she can speak up.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Zainab. There's no question about it. The evidence is right here with us in the studios and where you are joining us via Zoom as to the benefits of female empowerment, in this case, education. We're going to have to pause you and then return to the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs. Honorable Minister, congratulations on the 16 days of activism, the advocacy, and the messages that have been cascading down. But I want to return to this other aspect, which I asked Dr. Zainab, and that has to do with the psychological and psychiatric dimension to dealing with cases of gender-based violence. I mean, gender-based violence, we'll be making a mistake, some experts will say, if we were to focus solely on the victims. The perpetrators themselves also would require both psychological and psychiatric help, as it were. I mean, one critical aspect of this relates to anger management, for instance, in terms of physical violence. So you listen to Dr. Zainab, she was saying, oh, wow, that's something that is still missing in terms of the structure, in terms of quality or qualified personnel to deal with counseling, to deal with just, trying to help either a victim, or in this case now a victim, regain his or her composure and then be more useful to herself going forward. This is a big part of the game. What do you think?
It is very critical, and it's the most worrisome because the victims and the perpetrators, both of them need help. And that's, again, calls for interministerial collaboration. We are working closely with the Ministry of Health. We are working closely with the Ministry of Education. We are working closely with the Ministry of Justice. All these various ministries, Ministry of Information. In fact, we need the media, and your DG is doing absolutely extremely good because the SARS program, educating us every day, reminding everyone to condemn rape, it helps. So all hands must be on deck because just one sector or one ministry cannot handle it. And that was why, in the wisdom of Mr. President, he decided to put in place the interministerial committee chaired by the Attorney General and all these other ministries in place. We address these issues. We have various committees under the interministerial committee. We have the committee handling this psychosocial aspect of it. We have headed by a medical doctor from the Ministry of Health. So while the social welfare officers are doing their part, and together, if we keep working together, intensifying this advocacy, we will be able to help both the perpetrators and the victims, because both of them need help.
Oh, thank you, Your Excellency. Let me get back to Esther Uzoma. When you look at the situation at the moment, gender-based violence, and then a lot of what first comes to mind to a lot of people is women, girls, and the rest of them. Men also are violated. Young boys are violated. And it so seems as if the attention seems to be so much shifted towards the women folk instead of the men folk, although the men were the perpetrators in most of these cases. Does that really show some kind of inclusiveness in trying to address? If it does, how far have we gone in doing that?
Do you know why? One of the reasons, tragically, why that happens is that it's because of that power relations. Mm-hmm. That's why you don't know when a little boy is screaming, suck it up, be a man, don't cry. That power relations. He's socialized into power. I don't know, it beats me. Mm. Don't cry when you're hurting. Mm. And then when he's a grown adult, say, show your emotions to your wife. But as a child, he was taught to suck it up.
Yes. And now he's being told.
Now he's grown up, and your wife must know how you're feeling. Mm. It is that power relations that draws attention away from the boy. Mm. You don't know when that boy is hurting. Somebody is violating him. Something is not right. Suddenly, 4-year-old is smoking. Suddenly, you understand? It is that power relation. That's the danger. Mm. That is the danger. And so you see a boy who has been abused all his life. He grows up, grows with it. It's his big secret. He grows up abusing. He's a serial abuser. He can't keep a marriage. You understand? Because there's something still inside that has not been opened. This is an adult who is hurting. Suck it up, be a man. Don't cry. Don't be a sissy. That is how we groom our boys.
But that is a serious issue. How do we address it?
Now,
in this case,
mental health is an unscratched area. Mm. We've not even touched it at all. We were in court one day, yours truly, trying to conduct an cross-examination. The witness started eating the box, started eating chunks of the witness box, eating and swallowing. That was what it took to draw attention that, listen, this is a crazy person we are dealing with. He just took chunks. He was chewing and doing what? Swallowing. Comfortably.
Did he have water?
He didn't ask for. So that area is that we've not even considered it. In fact, when a man is dysfunctional, what would they say? Let's marry a wife for him. Is that not what we do to help him keep his sanity? Everybody knows that something is wrong with this man. Get a wife for him. So it's an area that we've not even scratched it. Mental health. And for the woman, you see women carrying baggages of abuse. I see it, spring out often. And then suddenly nothing makes them happy in a marriage. Nothing you do pleases them. Because there's something inside that's eating them up. We have not, our social welfare system is zero. We don't even have experts. We still rely on churches, morality, pray it over, cast out that demon. But somebody is mentally unstable. What will, for instance, impel somebody? Traffic light says stop. The person behind you is cursing you. Come on, cross that traffic light.
And blaring the horn, really.
Blaring the horn. So we're dealing with so much. Like, Honorable Minister did say, poverty is a huge part of it. That is why some of the things that we should deal with, we pray about it. We exorcise it. We always call in the exorcist. It's always somebody. But somebody is crying. Inside are people who are mentally unstable. We've not even scratched that surface. Not even touched it.
We would do that, really. We'll talk about that, really.
It's inevitable because mental health is an aspect of this whole issue. We're going to have to take a short break now. When we return from the break, we take the tweets and also continue with the rest of the conversation.
The counsel of our fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
My name is Nando Jamda.
Hussein Musa. Roduna Joel Finji. Said Musa John.
I'm a carpenter. I've been doing this for more than 8 years now.
And I said plantain. Na kai kimamin shekara uku.
I've been selling my tomatoes for about 10 years now, and I do it for a better Nigeria.
And I do it for a better Nigeria.
Ina wannan sana'ar lemu ne domin Najeriya ta ci gaba. Ina sa domin Najeriya ta kyau. And you can see we are doing our small little work to make Nigeria great.
As you can see, I'm a technician and I'm doing it to help myself and to help my generation.
Ina zaune ne a Plateau na business. Kuma ina yin wannan domin ci gaban ƙasar Najeriya.
For a better Nigeria.
This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
Una don't hear say them they rape about 35% of them girl picking, and even them women safe. Some of them, they even die in the process. Emotional trauma, uncle, they make some of them be like, say, they not did this what again, they don't go, but they live like ghosts. Some of them, shame don't kuku make them go kill themselves. It no good, though. This no be our culture. It no fit be the African way. Why we can't allow this kind of thing join body with us so they in loud way. If you know they fear law where man put, you know they fear Baba God there. You self, you where they cover mouth so you see many wanna they happen. You know what here when the Oyibo talk say problem where they bring come out. They solve and sharply. Remember, person where feel rape. If it's a key person, if it be you, if it be your pikin, if it be person them where you love well. So make we learn to carry women then. Like diamond where we be. No grief for rape.
empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
Newcastle United had their game called off last week. Will they be able to bounce back with a win when they welcome West Bromwich Albion to St James's Park? Find out this Saturday when Newcastle United hosts West Bromwich Albion on the Premier League Live, showing on the NTA network from 3:30 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Axis Bank, Papai Jebu, Lipton Tea, and Close Up in association with Gold.com.
All right, you're welcome back, and you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're live on NTA's network service and broadcasting from our Abuja headquarters studios. As I indicated before we went on that short break, we have a number of tweets. Nadabo, let's take the tweets quickly and then get back to our guests.
Let's start with Chris Seaman here, who says, ladies and guys need proper counseling from elders, old men and women who have spent many years in marriage. Religious organizations are not left out, and they should teach young men and women on how they should build peaceful homes free from crisis.
Dele Jack Solomon, gender-based violence is a global public health crisis, which has health, social, and economic implications, thus hindering national productivity amongst people in the productive age group. There should be continuous review of existing policies and laws on gender-based violence.
A lack of domestication of girl child rights by some states is an aspect or one of the causes of gender-based violence. It is weighing down the whole country.
Festus Akimboyewa, now why prevention of gender-based violence must be the first priority of government? Government at all levels must step up enforcement against perpetrators of the crime and work with survivors to develop a strategy needed to prevent thousands of Nigerians from experiencing the crime each year.
And he adds that it is sad that gender-based violence such as rape and domestic abuse, especially against women and girls, has become deep-rooted crime in our country. And government must therefore come up with a specific strategy to tackle it.
Another one from Chris Simeon. Domestication of an act on violence against women and gender-based violence in every state, that's the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, would reduce the maltreatment and victimization women often receive from the opposite sex.
Utola Sunday says gender-based violence is not welcome in any form, and society needs to tolerate one another irrespective of gender. Community-based awareness campaigns are also crucial to tame this menace.
Dele Jack Solomon, Nigerian women and girls and sometimes men face barriers in reporting violence. These obstacles are rooted in the cultural belief that domestic and sexual violence, for instance, is a private matter that should be addressed outside of the criminal justice system. This mentality must change through education, sensitization, and equitable and unbiased justice system.
Steve Bond, on his part, says the action of a governor reconciling an abuser with a victim is unwarranted, and the law should take its course and the perpetrator brought to book.
Mike Ayakwo, gender-based violence is common in Nigeria with no solution to abate the menace. Extant laws must not be lenient on the culprits of gender violence. The victims should not hide from reportage of any maltreatment whatsoever.
And for Usman Banu Kantu, despite the punitive measures put in place by some states to tackle the menace, the crime is on the rise, and largely due to gaps in the Constitution, as well as the faithless and heartless nature of the doers. Governments and clerics need to do more.
Yunusa Idris tweets, my plea is for the governors and local government council chiefs to enact laws that deal with gender-based violence in our communities because the cases keep increasing. Some people don't know gender-based violence is a violation of fundamental rights.
And here comes Sinlo Alpha, who says gender-based violence is on the rise across the length and breadth of this country. And no thanks to poor orientation and ignorance, having informed people who know their rights via education is the only way out.
Suleiman Babagana says fighting gender-based violence should start from the grassroots by community stakeholders, as law enforcement agencies alone cannot eradicate the menace. Well, those are the tweets that we can accommodate in the meantime. We already have a reporting system by way of the sexual offenders register, which is naming and shaming. But one of the tweets is just reminding us now that sometimes our cultural beliefs and social disposition would lead us to say, oh, sexual violence or gender-based violence is a family affair, so let's keep it in the family. It's still early days, as it were, for the offenders register. But in terms of law enforcement, when are we going to see a ramp up of reporting and documentation? Because that way you can, I mean, as the law of evidence says, you begin to develop similar facts to say, oh, last week your wife reported that, oh, this incident happened. If it's a threat, if you were to pick up the phone or just threaten a woman to say, I mean, you usual words of violence, of threat, and you don't take it seriously, it happens again, and the day it happens, it is probably the ambulance you are calling, if there's one in your neighborhood, to come and pick the persons. So the police already have a gender desk. And sometimes we've had them on Good Morning Nigeria, and when they are talking, it's as if they are also seeking to groom their own officers to know that when there is gender-based violence, it is not strictly a family affair to say, okay, you know what, maybe I just go settle this matter. There should be, when are we going to get to that level? When are we beginning to see advocacy so that the police blotter contains detailed account? It is not only for armed robbery or burglary or kidnapping. Yeah, that you get the particulars, get the date, get the events, and then of course now with e-governance, key it into a system so that at some point you can generate the data and say, oh wow, this happened, and then you know where to send help to. When are we going to begin to see that, Esther?
Well, not very soon, because it's a Nigerian issue. Why do I have to register for a driver's license? You take my data. I go for international passport. You take my data. All sorts of people collecting same data. So it's a Nigerian issue. All right? The Nigerian police, have you seen where they train them, the police colleges? So they are not even conscientized towards how precious data is in their training colleges. And so suddenly after training them inadequately, you bring them out to function forensically. Come on. So the problem is huge. It is huge. But that is what should be. The protocols, once a report is made, the protocol should be followed strictly. Do not exercise any discretion of the one that will be settled and the one that will not be settled. Follow the protocol. But what will galvanize action into strict compliance with protocol is litigation. We will continue to litigate actions of the Nigerian police, their omissions. We will continue to litigate until such a time it becomes an extremely responsive institution. I remember during Alobi's time as a commissioner of FCT here, one of the things he did is, listen, if you lose a matter in court because you were absent as a policeman, you will bear the consequences. Suddenly, we saw more police lawyers coming to court. So until we get to that place, to that point, where people begin to take personal responsibility for failure to comply with protocol, somebody comes to report, take the report, investigate, get doctors' opinion and all that. Don't exercise that discretion at that level. Until we get to that point, it's not yet.
Well, many thanks.
How many police stations or either DPO offices that have computers? So that could be a starting point to say, look, as part of the equipment of police stations, just have that so that you can key in some of this data and then have a central collection point where you can have storage.
Maybe that should be a new start somehow. Maybe in the new police reform and things like that. They're working on that. But when we look back, Your Excellency, the naming and shaming aspect of the register is very important. When we look back into into the years, maybe 30, 40 years ago. Once you do something wrong in a society, and then like stealing and some other negative crimes and whatever, you get ashamed of yourself, and the family too gets down. And everybody of that in that family becomes part of it. So people tend to run away from that, and society becomes so much clean. That is gone now. The register is out. It's part of it. You name and you shame. How do we get that back through the register, and how soon? I mean, she gave a picture of not really happening very soon, but I think something should be done about it.
Something will be done. I want to reassure Esther that with the commitment of Mr. President on this issue of gender-based violence, Mr. President is fully committed. And for the first time, if you recall, on the 25th of August this year, during the town hall meeting with EU and UN, he personally appeared and made a commitment. And we are following it up. I want to reassure you that with the commitment of the leadership from the president, the governors, the day I had a Zoom meeting with all the 36 governors, at the end of that meeting, they declare a state of emergency. And the number of states that are domesticating the VAP Act is increasing day by day. I had cried to God and reached out to most of the governors that before the end of this year, we'll have all the states domesticate the Child Rights Act and the VAP Act. And we've made tremendous efforts. It's the moment we have all these laws in place, they can now be able to implement. So we are making progress, and all hope is not lost. With the political will at all levels, from the presidency down to the chairman of local government, everybody is concerned. And all the issues raised now, I will still take it up. We are working with the police. I will see the Minister of Police, the IG. Our police must be properly trained and provided with all the necessary equipment, like the computer and all these things, to enable them function effectively.
I'm not cutting you short.
It's a new thing.
It's a new thing, really.
But I believe, and I want to reassure you, with the commitment of the leadership, we will address these issues.
In those days, one of those things who are really, valuable, and then they really worked.
Yes.
Traditional institutions and religious leaders play a very important role in that.
Yes.
How far have you gone trying to reach out to that and then see to it that their efforts complement the government's effort in this?
Sure. In all the states I visit, I was in Sokoto. I paid courtesy call on the Sultan. And even during when we went to flag off this year's gender-based violence and commissioning the Nana, all his traditional rulers were involved. And again, the UN system has brought in this honoring and acknowledging the he for she. That is helping. It's a commitment. If now I bestowed that honor award on Mr. President about 2 weeks ago, within the 16 days activity on the 26th, he has been honored as a he for she. The Senate President 2 days ago, I did for him. The governor, I think about 8 governors so far have been honored as he for she. That makes them more committed. And even the traditional rulers in Sokoto, the Waziri and some traditional world leaders that have been acknowledged as being committed in advocacy and intensifying the awards on gender-based violence, we honor them. And when you are honored, more is expected from you. And we are seeing that commitment. So we need to encourage the men. I keep saying that we need more men to speak. We need more men to come out and condemn gender-based violence, because women have been talking for too long. The civil society organizations are doing their best, but we need more men to come out and talk.
That's right. All right. Thank you, Honorable Minister Esther. I mean, at the end of the day, when gender-based violence occurs, once you say violence, there's some measure of assault.
Yes.
So the legal perspective is there. From your litigation experience, what has been the judicial attitude to gender-based violence?
The courts have always, they have been quick, to imprison, to punish. But they can't proceed, beyond what is placed before them. the judge will always tell you based on the evidence before me. And so we find cases. In fact, I remember one I did, we were in court. They married off this 15-year-old girl, to the man who raped her. And the family told me, lawyer, enough. All right? So these are some of the things. The courts will always be there to dispense that justice. But it has to be based on evidence. We are not yet advanced when we compel people. Because this is a crime against the state. This is a philosophy, for instance, some of us have. It's a crime against every individual. When you refuse to give evidence, you become a hostile witness. So that you give that evidence so we can conclude. But once they say they're no longer interested, the first thing that the prosecution does is say, I don't have a witness. You see. But each time you bring it up, all right, the courts have always, dispensed justice based on evidence before them.
All right. Okay, thank you, Esther. Let's return one more time to Dr. Zainab Bagudu. Dr. Bagudu, we, of course, getting to the close of our conversation this morning. Advocacy and all of that is important. Getting the victims to report is also important, but there's one tiny aspect which is no less significant. We do know that some families have the consideration that when some of these incidents of gender-based violence occur, there's a certain shame that the family feels, and therefore you want to shield the family from public exposure as to what happened. How do we deal with that? I mean, a couple may quarrel and if violence occurs, and if there's no trauma arising from that, they say, okay, let's settle instead of going to broadcast ourselves. A girl is violated in the family, and you say, look, don't ruin her chances of getting married in future, because your neighbors will be the ones pointing out to say, did you know what happened to this girl 20 or maybe 2 or 3 years ago? How do we overcome that to recognize that, look, all of these things that we are saying continue to provide an unwarranted canopy to perpetrators of gender-based violence?
Yes, that's a very important aspect of abuse. That is the stigmatization, the shaming of victims, and the inability to speak out. Part of the reasons this is happening is because the punitive measures are not being taken as they're supposed to be. On the other hand, you find that victims are often stigmatized right from the police, where they're reporting, to their communities, to their homes. Right from within the homes, they get stigmatized, and the mothers sometimes even deny it and say, no, you're lying. So the victims get more and more wary of speaking up. Again, the bane of all this lies in right advocacy, the right education, and the right awareness. On the one hand, while we're improving our laws, while we're improving our reporting systems, data collection, the government, the police, all the enforcement agencies, HISBA, we strengthen them, we help them, but we also carry out grassroots sensitization programs that enable people to know that you are not going to be victimized when you report. We currently I've spoken about this radio program. Personally, in Kebbi, we have done a lot of jingles and drama productions, going on radio shows. TV is good, like we are here now, but the majority of Nigerians listen more to the radio than to the TV, or they have more access to radio. Even the radio doesn't cover everywhere. So that's why we have to engage all the local government wives and the councillors. In Kebbi, we're lucky we have a councillor, in at least one female councillor in each local government area that I work with, and we're able to, as well as the wives of the chairman, and they are able to carry those messages to the grassroots. The technical working group is also working in a piecemeal way so that the entire state is covered right to the inner areas. And this, beyond just speaking to them, we can also include it in our school curriculums by including subjects and modules that enable our children to be empowered and to have more confidence to speak up without minding whose ox is going to be God, we can overcome this. And the more we talk about it, the more we speak to the issue, the more we make people realize that it is not a thing of shame. I've spoken about the work that the Nigerian Governors' Wives Against GBV are doing, and this is very helpful in that it's covering the entire country. There are over 30 members out of the 36 now. So we have managed to cover each and every zone, and every first lady in her own state is doing remarkable work. We have a group on WhatsApp, and every day it's totally amazing to see the kind of work that everybody is doing in each state, not just the laws, but reaching out. Friday sermons. The other day in Zamfara, the Friday sermon is a big deal. It's every Friday prayer, when the chief imam of the state talks about something, then we know that the issue is a lot. And beyond that, so many people are going to be listening. And this is what happened in Zamfara. In Ondo State yesterday, Ekiti State, Niger State, all these things that I've said we've done in Kebbi, they've done more in all the states. So we need to acknowledge that fact and know that by doing this, and then also, it's not just us working. Like, I don't work alone. I don't have a mechanism or a department in office to work like this. I work with the technical working group, and they are members of civil society, RAPA, IHP, FIDA, the Federation of Women Lawyers, all locally based in Kebbi. So it will outlive whatever I'm doing or whatever term my husband has in Kebbi. These systems are there, and they will continue to spread this message.
Many thanks, Dr. Zainab. We thank you so much for appearing on the program this morning. But let me finally, on this note, ask Her Excellency just maybe 30 seconds or 45 thereabout to talk to Nigerians about this issue.
Okay. Thank you very much. Today being the last day of the 16 days activism doesn't mean that we are going to close talking about rape and gender-based violence. The 16 days activism has been declared worldwide to intensify advocacy and to show solidarity to victims of rape and gender-based violence. I want to call on all well-meaning Nigerians, high and low, to please lend a voice. Be an ambassador. Protect the young girls around your environment. Protect the young boys that are being molested and abused. We must be good fathers. We must be good mothers. We must speak to our children. We must know what is happening in our homes and in our schools. I plead with teachers to be good teachers. Because once the child leaves the home, the school is the second home. I appeal to teachers. I appeal to our councillors, our political leaders, to lend their voice and condemn rape and gender-based violence in all its totality. We say no to it, and God bless every man who lend his voice and condemn gender-based violence in Nigeria.
And God bless every woman.
And God bless every woman that stands with us in this struggle. I appreciate Mr. President for his commitment. I thank him for his commitment and reassuring us that he will stand by us in this struggle. And all the political leaders and wives of governors. God bless you all.
All right. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Women Affairs, Excellency Mrs. Pauline Talent, one-time Deputy Governor of Plateau State. We appreciate you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We also would like to thank Dr. Zainab Shinkafi Bagudu, who's wife of the Kebbi State Governor, and she's a medical doctor. By the way, she's also, apart from this issue, also very passionate about cancer. So, Your Excellency, thanks a lot for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you for having me, and all the best to all of us. You are now a big stakeholder.
Thank you. And as always, our delight having Esther Uzoma, a lawyer and National Coordinator for Active Gender Initiative. She's also very active in election matters. Esther, thanks a lot. So after the program, you have the right to jump up.
Yeah, of course, after
you hit the roof.
Jump up.
Okay, so that does it for us today on Good Morning Nigeria. We thank you for tuning in. The program returns tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Until then, don't forget, we are having a rise in coronavirus cases. Stay safe and be well. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Yusuf Nadabu. So, do have a great day and remember to stay safe too.